towards the celebration of this year's African Liberation Day, I was made to recall Kwame Nkrumah's speech of 1963 during the OAU meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where he eloquently and fervently addressed the imperative unity of African nations, emphasizing it as the sole formidable force against the colonialism's grip on the continent. Yeah, his vision for a united Africa, it still continues even over 6 decades after. You remember in 1966, he was overthrown, sent to exile, and made to endure a lot of humiliation from the colonial masters. Nkrumah stands as one of the esteemed Africans who bore the cost of African liberation. And you see, presently we are still seeing proxy coups, economic sanctions, and more. And now the question that looms is, how much greater a sacrifice must we endure for additional freedom? Yeah. Moreover, how many of us are actually prepared to make that sacrifice? Because the necessity of a self-determined Africa for development remains evident. What raises more question is the genesis of Pan-Africanism. Why is it that the initial meetings from 1900 were all attended by non-Africans until 1945, when Nnamdi Azikiwe from Nigeria, Nkrumah from Ghana, and Jomo Kenyatta attended the Congress meeting in Manchester, London? Yeah. So why weren't the earliest meetings for African freedom and Pan-Africanism not held in somewhere in Tunis, somewhere in Accra or in Abuja, maybe Mombasa or Kinshasa? Does this mean that the Africans who were here were inadequate or less motivated? The paradox of African liberation being championed by people who are not intrinsically from the continent raises questions about the dynamics and complexities that surrounded the struggle for freedom on the continent. With the same people who captured Africa being quote-unquote the founders of Pan-Africanism, what does that say about the authenticity of African liberation? What does that say about the AU? You know, such reflections prompt us to scrutinize if we are active participants in a legitimate contest or mere spectators in a predetermined match. A lot of people say that Africans did wrong to adopt the Western systems of governance like democracy and the rule of law. But did we have an option? What would it be? This is considering that the fact that we had already been colonized and society had completely changed, yeah, and we had lost our indigenous systems. Therefore, while the blame of the adverse effects of colonialism lies squarely on the colonialist, it is also essential to consider for how long we should keep the blame, because we must contemplate our path forward, yeah, particularly in acquiring the autonomy to shape the future of our continent and determine our own governance. Was there a way for Africans to prevent colonization from happening? In my opinion, there wasn't, because change was already here, and it was either Africans changed or change changed them. Yeah. In fact, from a sociological point of view, societies must change over time due to various factors, and whether to what people would consider as positive or negative. We should unite as Africans, joining hands to collectively build and shape the destiny of our continent. By working together, we can harness our strengths, resources, and diverse cultures to create a brighter future for ourselves and the generations to come.